Welcome to House Business, where we give you business ideas on the house. I'm your host, Nicole.
And I'm your host, Marc.
And each week we come to you with a new idea. One of us presents, we discuss the idea, we debate the idea, look at the considerations or things you might need to kick it off. And the best part is these ideas are yours on the house.
And this week I'm presenting, and my teaser this week is, it's going to be InTentse.
This right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. This right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh.
So, Marc.
Yes, Nicole.
My sister messaged me, so I got some feedback for you.
Sweet.
This is my sister, Tyler. You have not met this sister, so I have two.
Okay.
So shout out Tyler. And she was listening to the pod.
Shout out Tyler.
Her message to me was that she's like, I think me and Marc would be very fast friends. I think we would get along very good because she was loving your hating on bikes in the street.
Thank you.
Slow people.
Thank you.
People like just kind of taking too long to get wherever you're going. And she presented a question she wanted me to ask you is
Totally.
your opinion, and I think I know what this is going to be, your opinion on when you're walking behind a group and they fan out in front of you.
Oh my God. I think the only thing worse than that is people doing anything in an airport.
Oh, okay.
I think for some reason, people in it, I know I'm derailing from your question, but I'll come back to it.
No, it's good. Okay.
The only thing I hate more than people taking up an entire sidewalk is people taking up a street, which I'm glad I found common ground with people on that because I thought I'd get a little more hate, is people in an airport because they just stop and they say, I don't know if you've ever seen those kind of like Instagram memes, but of people just kind of like standing in front and turning at the second you're there. But yeah, I hate it. I hate when people fan out in the street because I got places to go and you don't own the sidewalk. So
I just love that she is like, I've never met Marc. I feel like we are friends. I feel like we get along because I have the same amount of like lack of patience or hatred towards all these things. And she's like, ask him about fanning out because that gets her going.
I've never thought of it. I'll think of slow walkers, but I've never thought of like multiple people being, that actually, because it's so rude if you think about it, right? Because I'm like, I'll walk up, I won't say anything right off the bat. I won't say like on your left when I'm walking. Right. So there's just a lack of consideration. I'm like, all right, I already don't like you as a person because if you're not going to let other people pass.
I feel like it's probably one of those things too, like everyone is probably guilty of at times when like you're going about minding your business. But I've never thought of it as like a fan. I thought that was a good reference point of like, we always used to joke in college and even like now with my kids, like single file style when you're on the street. But the fan was a good reference, I thought.
Yeah. It's a really good visual too. And I hate it. So
right. I do want to go back though to the airport. The fact that your mind just went straight to an airport. What is the craziest thing you've seen? I might need to think on. I do have a good one from recent times though, but what do you got?
I wouldn't say crazy because if it gets too crazy, then someone's getting arrested at an airport. So I think it's more so just the general tone of people just sauntering about when it's like, I need to look at my terminal before I can go do anything else. I need to know that it exists. I need to know that plane is going to be there on time. Right. So like I have an agenda when I'm flying and traveling, and especially if I'm flying like alone. Then I got to do that even more rather than like if I have a friend with me. But I just feel like people in airports just kind of stand there.
Yeah. I recently, wild to see, saw this in an airport. I saw a man shave his face with an electric razor sitting in the terminal waiting for his plane. Your face. Okay. And not only did he shave his face with an electric razor, like watch this whole buzzing scenario go down. He then squirted eye drops like in his eye, but missed his face and it shot over I don't know what he was doing, but like it shot over the seat to the next person. And like, I think to your point of like inconsiderate.
Wow.
I was just thinking like these are types of like rules that just like don't exist anywhere else or like should not be existing here. Go to the bathroom. I don't know. or why you need to shave at the airport, but I did recently witness that, and I was so grossed out. I got up and moved to a completely different gate to sit next to.
Do you mean shaving while you're sitting in the terminal?
Yeah, he was sitting in the chair at his gate with a full electric razor.
They have bathrooms, right? That's a thing.
I know. And
Wow.
to give a shout out to a former episode, bathrooms where you can go do things, potentially put an electric straightener. Just going to shout that out right there. Plug that in.
Shout out electric straightener.
Maybe it's electric razor in those bathrooms. But yeah, that was pretty gross.
Oh man, I'm not sharing one of those. I'm leaving that alone. That's instant veto on that idea, by the way.
Right. I also have bad luck, maybe we'll call it, where I've been puked on in an airport and plane more than a couple of times, a handful, maybe 5.
Wow. The trauma you've experienced without.
I know. I'm just one of our greatest warriors. I just keep carrying on, keep traveling. But I've been puked on by kids. I've been puked on by adults. I don't know how. I'm maybe just that type of person that looks like I'm there to be thrown up on. I don't know.
I get what a wild sentence to just lead off on, but that's
right. So yeah, I got some good airport stories. So maybe we could keep going on that in the future.
That
but,
is awful. That is awful. Well, shall we hop into the idea here? Do you have any guesses?
Any guesses? So
I know we don't usually do
the teaser again was intensity. Say it one more time.
The teaser is it's going to be intense.
Intense, like how I just went to intensity.
Yeah,
I think of intense as I don't even know that I want to guess. I'm not going to guess.
You don't want to guess? Okay, that's okay.
I would think of it as
that's fine. We never usually guess.
A workout or something.
Okay. I can see why your mind would go to that.
Okay.
And it's actually not that today.
Okay.
It's a little different. Some of the ideas that we've come up with are trying to kind of hit a broader audience.
Right.
Trying to get bigger markets, which means you have more accessibility to different places and different things. My idea is a little bit more niche. So already one of those.
Like it?
Yeah, just a little more niche. Okay, so my InTentse would be a business where you contact a service and they can fully set up your campsite for you.
Okay, I already like this because I have a lot of things. Yes, go.
That's the one pitch tagline. And
okay,
I was also trying to think of something that was maybe a little more service based when I was it just kind of hit me that way. And the problem that this is solving is I know lots of people who like camping. I like camping, but I don't really want to do setup for it. I don't really want to do the tents part. I mean, I can. I don't really want to. I don't really want to bring the stoves, the pans and whatever, and do all that setup. And I know when I was a kid, my dad, I have 3 siblings. So when he would take us camping, my dad would have to do all of it because, we'd be running around, throwing each other in the sand or the mud or whatever, and definitely not helping. So this idea partially comes from thinking about those fun complaints in the car home when we didn't help at all during it. So I know that lots of people like camping, and I know, people like to do setup as well, but sometimes it gets harder for bigger groups of people and maybe people that are less experienced in setting it up. So kind of a simple premise, but that's kind of my idea. There's a lot, and you could do this in a tiered system based on what you need, the level of service, and then the market would be anybody that likes to camp. Could be anywhere anywhere in the U.S. is what I was thinking. I have more to that.
Okay,
but that's a quick pitch today.
I'm okay. Did you say at the beginning intense or intense, or is this now was this which one?
Yeah, my intention was to say it as intent.
Intent.
So you spell it INTENT.
I like this. Okay, I like a good play on.
I know
words.
you do.
So
I know you do.
Everyone, this is already branded because it's great. And also, I would argue camping is intense, and I'm gonna feel funny when I say the word intense. But
you're gonna think about it. Yeah.
I don't like it. In my mind because I'm double thinking about it. But I like the idea. Let's be correct. I like the idea. Let's talk about the business of this, the breakdown. How's this business look? What's the layout to you?
I'm gonna tie in some other kind of businesses that exist to kind of explain it. So Something that would be comparable is something like Airbnb Experience. If you've ever used that before, you could kind of go through Airbnb to specific people who are putting themselves up for whatever it is. And so it would be comparable to that, in which you know the kind of service you're going to get. And, maybe it could be through an app or a website. But I wanted to take it one step further and saying, I'll contact this company, InTentse, and they will book the campsite. They will reserve the campsite with the relevant campgrounds or forest preserve or whatever it is, or national park. So they'll handle all the logistics side. And on the day that I have agreed to be there, we've agreed, I've paid for it, they'll do a full setup of everything that I've agreed to or selected. You can even do add-ons. And so it's a service upcharge. So really there's upfront costs that the business would have to own the equipment, and it would be somewhat of a rental service as well.
So the tent is not yours. The tent, like they bring, you're like, I want a 6-person tent. I want a 2-person tent. They're bringing the tent too.
Yeah, the company would provide everything. So
okay,
like as a let's just say you're going as a family, you could obviously bring whatever you want and then take that off. But for convenience, have it all set to go. You leave it everything when you're done. You don't have to change, clean, or do anything. Well, depending on whatever you pick. But
right.
While a relatively simple premise, I started to look into this and kind of see if there's comparable things. I saw some things where at specific parks, you can sort of organize it with the campgrounds themselves, and they have some selection, but not a really curated thing that seems very professional, seems very local, which isn't a bad thing, absolutely. But I'm thinking this on a more national scale, because you still have to you have to buy the rental equipment. So there might be a bit of overhead. And so you might need to branch into other markets, different campsites across the country. And then we have so many here that I think that there could be a need for it.
I have so much. I'm like, where to start?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with, where do you envision this like starting? I guess where my mind went is like, do you think it's more strategic to start in a small campsite, like small localized area where you're maybe from, or big? And I have an opinion on this. I'm curious, like where when you thought of this, like what would be like the ideal location to start?
I mean, that's a really good question. I hadn't exactly picked apart, but I know that there's a lot of national parks here. I mean, you'd have to look into that, but I would say anything that has good foot traffic, because the way that I see it is that you're not breaching any, you're not breaching anything with the campgrounds themselves, because it's been reserved through your company. So it's not like you're taking up campsites. They would have reserved it anyways. So why not reserve it under your name and then do it that way? I think as you scale, I think you can move to more regions. But I think maybe if you're starting this as a one person operation, you could just do it, wherever you live, and make some small overhead and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like if you're starting this business, you clearly love camping and like setting this stuff up, which I'm just going to say, and we'll probably come back to this, I do not. So I think this is a great episode for you and I to talk about, because I don't really picture either one of us setting a tent up. Maybe you more than me. But anyways, you talked about like going with your 3 siblings, camping with your dad, and how your dad would set stuff up while you played. Well, as you know, I'm one of 5, so I have 4 siblings, camped a lot as a kid. And when I say camped a lot, like I didn't really grow up in a camping family, but we would definitely go to a campsite maybe once, twice a year. Definitely have tent camped growing up. And I oftentimes now think of this as a mom, that this is not an opportunity I plan to introduce my kids to, because I don't want to do it. I'll say as a kid, I didn't really love it. I mean, I did and didn't, but I sometimes think about like, okay, how it was like a family core memory that I would love for them to experience once with us. And again, I have no interest in doing this. So where I'm going with your idea is, I think it'd be really great, depending where you would start this business, like if it was small local town or smaller town. But I think some of the bigger national parks actually intrigued me as you were talking, because I'm thinking as a mom, okay, if I could get a service like this to go set up a tent for me in like Yosemite or Estes Park, somewhere that would be really cool to go to. And I'll just be clear, I don't even know if you can camp in those national parks, or like where. I think you get what I'm going. Okay, you're getting where I'm going with this. But like that's, I'm like, okay, you're talking me into this service of like someone's picking out the campground, someone's taking care of this, and I'm showing up because it's already just a ton of work to get the family out the door to begin with. So I like the concept, and I think you could go a lot of different ways, and you could start off pretty local, but I think some markets could be those really big tourist attractions where you're like, I would love to get my kids to these places, but
Totally.
I like want to go look at it and get back in the car and go to the hotel. So I think that's a great idea to like experience that and introduce different people to camping that maybe aren't as, it's like not their number one hobby. So
Yeah. Just thinking about that too. And that's what I thought too. I'm like, my dad loves to camp, and my siblings and I are mixed on which one of us are really into camping. You know, I love outside, but like maybe like in your case, maybe one of your kids really, really loves to camp. It doesn't know that until they go out there.
right.
So I think that this sort of can open that up to say like there's less of a barrier to enjoying nature like that. But also not just saying I'm going to get an Airbnb close by or I'm going to get a log cabin close by, because it's not the same thing.
No.
You know, there's a comfort to it, and there's sort of a closeness you get when you do that kind of thing. And I would just say, especially with family, like this is this is marketed to families that want to camp, maybe less so individuals. I mean, though that could be helpful. I have some offshoot ideas that are like a little bit smaller that would come from this. We could get to that later. I think the market is families. And yeah, to your point, the national parks would be like probably the target. I just think it'd be hard to start there.
Yeah. I get that.
Just because this is gonna take some one-on-one time with yourself. Now, it might not be as bad because you could just, set it up on a Friday and pick it up on a Sunday or something like that. And so it only requires as much time as it takes you to put up and set down, but it will require you to drive there. So that's why or hire somebody or have a partner in a different state or whatever it is. So that's kind of where I think you would start.
Well, I think of, some of our listeners, I think there's going to be the savvy campers that are listening to this that are like, I know the campsites, I know where to go. And it's not going to be, whatever your location is, it's not going to be a big deal for you at all to go out because of your love for that environment and that activity. I just loved what you were saying so much about your dad and your siblings, because similar, I have siblings that just love camping so much. Like they still do it to this day.
Yeah.
When we talk about where we want to go or what we want to do, like that is what they tend to like as their hobbies.
Totally.
And so I think as a mom, that is where I would love to take my kids at some point, because you do see that value. Like you want to introduce them to that in a safe atmosphere, something with the family. You're right. It's bonding. I can think of like my bonding story was with my mom. We always left and slept in the car. So, that's a side note too, granted. Yeah. But, I think it's a really great point. And I think this is a good idea, again, for like the right type of individual that is into this hobby. One thing I feel like I've done in the past, or, if you think of like renting, you have people that rent RV sites, a little different. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about. But also in the Midwest.
We're going to get there in 2 seconds.
Okay. In Iowa, Wisconsin, at least, and I'd assume Illinois, you guys very similar, but I have gone like canoeing or tubing. Have you ever done that before, Marc?
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Okay. So it's like you already have these businesses that have purchased the canoes, or for our listeners that don't understand what I mean by tubing, if you're not in the Midwest, it's literally floating down a river in an inner tube, and it's like the best.
It's awesome.
You have these businesses that are already renting those out, renting campsites. It's like one extra step into like, hey, we can set the tent up, and then expanding out a network. So if you want to take maybe even small local businesses and scale them up, I think that's kind of where this idea is making me think of.
There are partnerships for sure. I mean, exactly to your point. I mean, you could almost become like an Expedia type. Right. You know how they have the Expedia has the flights tab, and then but they also have the hotels and the cars and stuff like that. So it could almost be somewhat of an offshoot of, I don't know how you structure it exactly, but just loosely based on that. And then you could have a kayak add-on. You could have a tube add-on. You could have all these things. And then as long as the customer doesn't break it, then they just bring it right back, just like a rental. You've got some wiggle room to make some money on that because it gets all provided right there. Yeah.
I'd be a little curious, like, okay, so business, like let's kind of pick apart. So it's like we talked about how you could start small, scale up. Do you envision like reserving something like this just on a website to start? Is that kind of what it would look like? Or have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think website, app, I think either one is totally fine. I think everything is an app these days, pretty much.
Right.
You
I
can
feel
do
like we
all the
talk
bookings.
about an app in every episode. It's like
That, and
it's an app.
Yeah, but I think the app for this one is more of a gateway to it. This is it's more of a booking site than anything else. So, like I said, kind of closer to Airbnb or an Expedia type of booking service.
Now, you just opened a new idea for me. Would this ever in your mind be like you own the service and you're maybe partnering with like Airbnb through that? Or if you figured out like the partnership of, you said like the Airbnb experiences, I don't know what that would look like, but do you picture it standalone or maybe a partnership too?
I think one of your issues here in this, and I don't know if we've had this one kind of up until now, but I think overhead is going to be your biggest issue because there's a lot of upfront investment in the equipment that you're going to have to own and keep and maintain and deal with as people damage it over time. So you've got an inventory now where we may have not had an inventory in some of the other ideas that we've come up with. Problem number one to that question. And then problem number two, so it's money. And then problem number two with the Airbnb specifically, I brought up experiences as sort of more of a reference than anything. I think I would hesitate to partner with a big service like that, like an Expedia, like an Airbnb. And the only reason I say that is while you get good exposure, you may run into Airbnb overhead fees. I know people complain about that who have Airbnbs that they own and rent out and stuff. And, while plenty of people make money on it, it eats into your profits. And I think I would hesitate to make those big partnerships right off the bat, though there is benefit to it too.
After hearing you talk about that, agree. I think you would just run into probably more issues than you'd want up front. Maybe you start this company with your goal to sell to one of those, like an Airbnb, but that's down the road and that's where you make some of your money. But from what we've discussed, probably take this on, start small and do it on your own. Now, overhead was like my next question, so I'm glad you hit on that. The wear and tear on these, I'm not sure the life of a tent, or I think depending like who you have in that tent, you'd have to kind of have some checks and balances of like cleaning it, making sure, it's clean and waterproof when the next people get there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is where I would defer to somebody who's an expert in doing that, who would be the only person or type of person who would venture into something like this. Me personally wouldn't know exactly if something had been used so many times. Is it still usable? Is it still waterproof? Is it still safe? However you want to put it. But yeah, that's a real problem for sure with this idea. Think of it as an add-on service as well. And I think that would be the only way to kind of combat this, is saying like, you can bring your own tent if you want. We'll just bring the pots and the pans and we'll book the campsite for a small fee. Though, to answer your question, there is no way around inventory wear and tear deteriorating. So I think that's just a part of a inventory type business.
I think the neat part about this, though, is like as you grow, you could acquire more inventory. I hesitant to say you would not want to scale too fast by acquiring inventory. But as you acquired more inventory, saw taste preferences honestly, you could put taste preferences out there. And if you're like, oh, I need a 6-person tent like in a week, you can figure that out. I like that you also talk about like pots and pans or add-ons. And I think that's maybe a really great spot where you could make the revenue of like, okay, this service of setting the tent up maybe isn't some crazy fee, but now if you're bringing a tent and then every additional add-on, I think there's that revenue being taken care of there as well, or like being made up for.
You're right. The add-ons, it's maybe you don't make money on the tent part. Maybe you make money on the fact that people didn't bring their pots and pans, or maybe they didn't bring a grill or something, which I know some places have grills, so that's depending, right? But I think it's the totality of it is, generally speaking, people aren't fully prepared. My dad, fully prepared. But I feel like a lot of people may, if you're not a seasoned veteran at taking out an entire family, which is different than solo camping, there may be things that are harder to do, especially maybe if you're a younger parent or, you have young kids, you've never really taken everybody out and you don't have accessibility to other things. So I think there is value in having all of these different offerings. But on the flip side, now you've got inventory that you don't know you're going to use.
I went to so you're checking out and you're like, okay, do you want to add on this $15
Yeah.
local bug spray or something where you're, to your
Sure.
point, you're like, oh, I didn't realize like
Yeah.
black gnats or this type of bug was an issue in this part of the country, or while I'm camping, things you, again, don't think about, that you could say
Yeah.
like, hey, these products are going to be waiting for you at the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Also giving you like tips on like, if you're in this location, we recommend X, Y, and Z, or you could just get it through us. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I still think you need to make a profit off of like the tent setup, the whole thing.
Of
But
course.
I think the bigger profit always comes from a last minute purchasing decision, as we know with anything, where you're like, oh, shoot, like I do need this and I'm not going to want to run out to get it.
Yep.
I think that's also a great opportunity too.
You could have emergency offerings. You could say like, we could also bring you toilet paper
Toilet paper
on the Saturday if for an upcharge or whatever. I don't know. That's just kind of a crazy idea, but
right.
The point is you're providing the whole thing rather than maybe you don't want to bring your cast iron pan from home, and maybe you only have one, or maybe you only have one tent and you're like, I don't really want to, this place is kind of rough. I don't want to risk it, or I don't know. A bunch of reasons why you might end up using it.
So my other question from something you talked about was, you said your dad loves camping. As you can recall, like, did your dad do the campsite booking, pack all the bags, bring all the stuff, set all the tents up for you and the family?
Yeah. Especially when I was younger too, because our attention spans were about 8.5 seconds. So at the second he would say, all right, pick up that rod and connect it to this other rod of a tent, we would pick it up and start hitting each other with them. So
right, of course.
Like I would hit my brothers and my sister. So that's how
where
that
I'm
would typically
going with
go.
This is like, I'm going even back further. So when I think of any trip, oftentimes with the family, depending on the family dynamics, but a lot of times it's happening in a partnership, where I think of going camping as a kid, where my dad too was the one setting all the stuff up, but my mom was the one that booked it all, packed it all, made sure we had the food, made sure we had the pans. And I think the other piece to this idea, whether it's just one person doing the whole thing or multiple people, is it does also take not only the burden off, like when you go to set the campsite up, there's like the burden of the planning that like this would just be so much more effortless of maybe the person that, and if it is the same person, like wrangling all the materials, all of the logistics. And I think there's more to it than just the setup of the campsite. It's like getting to the campsite, like you said, with all the packing stuff. So I just really wanted to call that out too, that I think this app or business solves a few problems to make for, if it's a family adventure where two people are planning it, it can be difficult. Or if it's just one person, takes a lot of stress off one person. So I like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't actually think of the logistics part as being so important, but that totally is. And you don't have to register you wouldn't have to register your car at the campsite or whatever you have to do. I don't even know sometimes. Also, you don't have to load up your car when take it there. You don't have to unpack it, and that's something we obviously would help with, but still it's a lot of work. I mean, a lot of coolers and a lot of food, and like there's a lot that goes into it. So it's a great call out. I sort of had two offshoots as well, so that because let's say that this idea doesn't actually take off. I have similar concepts that could be with the same business, or just like maybe little mini ideas.
Okay.
I mentioned the difference between solo camping and family camping a little bit earlier, and I said we'd come back to that. As a much smaller niche and a much smaller subset of people, you could do a similar type of setup in more difficult climates, or more difficult to more experienced hikers, for example, or climbers, as you go up in elevation of a mountain. So the best thing I can compare this part of the idea to is, and I know it's a little bit dramatic, but the base camps of Everest. You know how at Everest there's like different base camps at different elevations that are, they're kind of community type tents, and they're kind of stocked with basic supplies. I remember this from like a documentary when I was like 9. I don't know. but they have they'll put like spare oxygen tanks, or even they're left from previous hikers to help other people. But yeah, so that's another little niche that could be a subset of the same business, or maybe its own thing. I don't exactly know how big that market would be. Plus, the person who would be doing this would have to be very, very experienced in doing so. That's one little idea. Do you have any thoughts?
So that would be like your solo camper idea, like a solo.
Probably, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I don't think you. Yeah, okay. I don't think you'd be able to bring kids that high, and I think
no,
you'd have to be sort of like a couple dynamic where you're both kind of on board for that. It's less casual, I would say. It's more of like a more intense, no pun intended, but
that's almost like a guide as well. Like you have someone.
True.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the intense portion, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next idea. What's the next shoot off?
Yeah. So
okay.
That's like a much smaller one, like even more niche. And then this one might be a little bit bigger, and I think you're going to run into some issues with this one. But you could also do something like an RV situation, like you mentioned earlier. You could do an RV situation, and then your target could be something like a Country Thunder. Your target could be like a music festival campsite. So campsites in a different context, because you still need to rent those, and you can bring in RVs and camp and that kind of stuff. I think that you would be able to upcharge like crazy for the convenience of that, but there's a much higher risk because you're putting in literally, let's say, an RV, or tents could actually still work here, but your equipment's at a much higher risk because you're at a music festival. People go crazy. That's my other little.
So are you saying like you own the RV? You're like almost, again, for lack of, like, renting out the RV, or like you're showing up with your RV, or were you meaning that in a different way? Okay.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, you're right. Like let's say, and this is again a huge investment. So this is why I want to just kind of tag this on at the end, sort of as like a separate offshoot. Let's say you own the RV and you buy it, and then but you go and you set up the campsite and you did this. I have a cousin who did do this at one time at a music festival.
Rented or gave his?
Owned the RV, and then he brought it and then set up for everybody. He went and set up the whole campsite. So that's kind of why I was like, what if you could scale that to do multiple campsites, but also do the bookings and things like that? I'm not sure if it was more of an impromptu thing, but it was just kind of one of those wild stories.
Gosh, we are going to need him to comment. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious of like how often he does that. That seems like, similar to Airbnb, like huge undertaking, and especially a music fest. Like, I'm so please, what's your cousin's name? Have him make a comment on how this went.
Matt.
And send us.
Well, shout out Matt. It's a great story. Yeah. So that's my other little, maybe another market you could get into. I'm not as crazy about it, but I just,
Yeah, I feel. Yeah, I think it's a great market. It's like scaling up your inventory like big time. Now you're talking capital items. But I am curious. One thing you said, and I don't know that you liked the idea when you said it, but I'm intrigued by the renting of campsites for a festival, because you could go into a festival and set up so many tents in one location. You can make a ton of profit, and it's like you're already in the music festival, getting to enjoy it, setting these tents up, whatever contract that would look like. Or I don't even know that you would. I don't even think you would need a contract, just a ticket to the festival to set these tents up for people. That is maybe like a really great side note. And I would wonder if something like that does exist, but I think that is a really great idea, because you could knock out like, over 20 tents, like, and make a ton of profit.
Yeah. I don't know this for sure, but I have a sneaky hunch that I would be very surprised if Country Thunder let you do something like that in mass scale. I don't know. So this is maybe something to look into, but I'd be very surprised if they let you get a campsite and then also run a business of tents out of. Maybe people do this on the side, and maybe they just kind of do it for cash, and that's totally fine. But I'm trying to think of it in in a way that you can market it as a taxable, legitimate business. I would be very, very hesitant to actually do it on scale. I love the enthusiasm, though. I'm with you. Like,
You're like,
in
I'm just
concept, that
casually
totally
setting
works.
up my 20 tents for myself to sleep in tonight. Like, there's no
I
big
like
deal
to
here, but
stretch. What do you want?
I like to stretch. You're probably right that there's like a ton of permitting. I would like to take a pause and an asterisk for a second. What is Country Thunder? You've said this now twice. I think I understand it, but where is this
Country Thunder
festival?
is?
And have you ever gone?
Wow.
And do I
No,
need to
I've never
go?
gone. I don't know. But I'm not as big in
I
country
know you don't
music.
like country.
It's
But
very
where is
anti-Midwest
this?
of
Is this
me.
like
Yeah, it's like, I think it's actually,
Chicagoland?
yeah, it's in the
Wisconsin?
suburbs, north. God, I can't believe you would love it. You would love it. It's all country music. That
I
was
would
like,
love this,
the
I
thing
think.
that people in high school would go to and, drink early.
As you're saying it, I think I remember this from high school too. I'm wondering if it is in maybe Wisconsin-ish.
Could be.
I don't know.
It could be.
But
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I just like how many times you referenced Country Thunder, and I know you don't love country. So I'm like, okay, have you been to Country Thunder?
Hey,
And
I don't have to like something to think we can make money on it, okay? I'm just saying.
I'm like, that's fair. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so we talked about the equipment, like having to, like the liability of the equipment and having to upkeep it. But what do you think about like general liability behind this? Like, I guess, if you're setting up someone's campsite for the night, there's different things that can happen when you're camping, like safety precautions. You can have a storm, you can have animals. I'm curious, like, what your liability around this would have to be, like, contractually, first of all, if you sign up.
Yeah.
But then second, like, if you would need an insurance policy because you are giving them the place to stay. What are your thoughts around that liability?
Just premise that we're not lawyers, just again to throw that out there, a little disclaimer.
Right.
But
I'm just like curious
I would think
of
that
like
no, totally. I don't think there would be a lot of liability unless the equipment malfunctions and causes an injury. I think there's general terms in contracts that are fairly standard saying that there's we can't do anything about the weather.
like a force.
We can't really do anything about force majeure. Yeah. We can't do anything about animals, like I don't think that the onus would be on the company to do that. I think that would be unreasonable to sue a company for that, in my opinion. The only thing I could think of is if something happens with the tent that you set up wrong or something.
Right.
And I'd be very surprised if there was any way to cause an injury. Maybe there is, but I don't think anything's serious. Maybe you just steer away from like providing gas, like for a grill or something. That might be a good thing to avoid.
No lighter fluid, no gas. Yeah, probably good.
Yeah, anything that would be like that.
One thing, if you took this idea, I do think if you're renting the campsite for the family and setting the tent up, that campsite might also have a contract that you're signing in the rental agreement. And so I think you might want to look into your own set of contracts and maybe talking with your legal team or your insurance of like what that would have to look like, because you'd have to be able to pass that liability from the campsite through to the renter. And maybe it's like that you're asking the renter to sign the agreement for the campsite as well. Again, I think that's for whoever takes on this business idea, but that is just maybe one piece that I would like triple check. Like, how do you want that to look in case something would happen on that campsite? There's usually someone owning the campsite, whether it's like the state as in a state park or it's a private campground. Someone is renting that out. And typically to use a site, you are putting down a payment and you are signing something. So just something to kind of maybe look into. Yeah, no,
that's good. Honestly, I didn't even think of that ahead of time. That's a really good point. So liability checking would be a good one. And then really the other thing that only I could think of is the overhead. And it's a niche market. So those are the three. Those are some good issues, I think. I think the overhead is going to be your biggest concern in terms of like day-to-day cost and eating into your revenue and gauging whether or not to keep certain things on hand based on demand for what you get. If you want to be a one-stop shop, I think you got to really upsell the convenience of everything else and also the setup and takedown.
I think those are my three takeaways as well. Like, this is a niche market, but I think, you could start small with like one campsite and you could scale this and you could scale it really nicely, even with the equipment is what I like about it. Seeing what people are using. I agree. I think the places you could get stuck are having too much inventory too fast. You'd want to scale slowly, figure out your market, and figure out what works best, like even with your setup tear down schedules. And, if you scale too fast, you're going to need employees to do all that because you can only set up so many tents in a day. So I think that would be my takeaway with this is great idea, but you'd really want to focus in on where you're doing it, how you're scaling, and then also maybe looking into that liability piece. It's not something I would overlook if I was starting this business. Let's just say that. But I think it's a great idea. InTentse. I like
InTentse.
InTentse. InTentse. Yeah, we'll do that.
We'll just be yelling like, InTentse.
InTentse.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on House Business.
Hey, now feels like a great time to mention that this podcast is produced by My4 Creative.
Couldn't think of a better time than now.
They work with businesses and organizations on all their video marketing needs, and they make it a super simple process.
I hear they're doing podcasts now. Is that true?
It is. New this year, they are offering podcast production, which is super exciting.
And believe me when I say, they make you look and sound your absolute best.
We look awesome. Learn more at my4creative.com. My4 Creative, video production simplified. Now, back to business.
So, Nicole, you and your family did something really cool. Do you want to tell the audience kind of the fun thing that you did?
Yes. So this week, there's a heat wave in the Midwest right now.
Yes.
So our plans were canceled. Like we've had every night, it's been like 100 degrees. And our practices, some work things got moved around. Everything got canceled. And so I came home and was like, hey, if we left right now, we could make it to Wrigley Field and we could go to the Chicago Cubs game, which it happened to be Iowa Hawkeye night. And so clearly.
Let me stop you for 1 second. Tell the audience how far that is. Let's just throw that in there. This is the big surprising part.
So Dubuque to Wrigley on that night was 3 hours and 45 minutes. So we left. When I said this, I was like, hey, we could go to Wrigley. Slowly, the family, like, should we go to Wrigley? But everyone kind of started putting like Cubs clothing on as we're like, I don't think we can make it. And it was like, my daughter, she's like, then has her Cubs shirt on. I'm slowly like packing a bag. And within like 5 minutes, we were out the door.
Amazing.
Takes about 3 hours and 45 minutes. We left at 2:45 and we were, Mark, I am not even kidding you. We parked at someone's house in Wrigleyville. And we were in our seats at 7:04, and it was first pitch at 7:05.
Oh, my God.
We stopped one time. It was like everyone had a 5-minute bathroom break. We knew we had to go straight to the stadium, no stopping at like the hotel to drop stuff off. It was like,
amazing. We
are getting there. And yeah, it was like perfect. And, we've tried taking the kids. This was their first trip to Wrigley. So we've tried doing it before.
Yeah.
We've been in Chicago. It's like rained out. It's been cold. But the Cubs had an amazing win over the Padres, saw a bunch of home runs. It was hot, but it was like an awesome, awesome summer night in Chicago. So it was great.
I can't listen. This is one of those situations where, you'll send me a text in the morning about, the pod and whatever, normal conversation. Well, what should we do? Whatever. Don't hear from you for the whole day. All of a sudden, Cubs game.
Here I am. Hey, I'm downtown Chicago, Mark.
I don't know. Unbelievable. I mean, the shock I had, I was like, well, of course you would. You have the night off, so why would you not?
Well, and it was, last minute. I think the week before, you actually put the idea in my head because, like I said, it was Iowa Hawkeye night. And in the past, we have gone to the Northwestern night together with our friend Demi, where when you go to these games, you get...
Demi.
Hi, Demi. You get a pretty awesome hat. So I'm like, God, you showed me your hat from the Northwestern game this year. And I was like, I need that hat.
Got it right here. Sitting right here on my little counter.
Like
here.
my Iowa hat? No, I have one too.
We should put them on.
They're pretty cute. So if you're a Cubs fan and I think it's just the Big Ten teams, maybe they do it for more. I bet they do all the Chicago teams.
Probably. I'm not sure. Yeah, they do it at the Sox do it too, I think. But the Cubs are better. So
it's such like an interesting like trucker hat. But each year they have a game where
Yeah.
they change it up. They change, this is like a nice little cute corduroy one. I do like that we
Yep.
both have different logos this year, even though I love my Cubs Northwestern hat too. So
Yeah.
it's great.
Well, I told you I was out of town. I don't know if I told you this story. Maybe the audience doesn't know this story, but I was out of town on my trip, and I was like, I really want that hat, because every year they come out with the kind of new design, just like like the one you have, and then it's branded for the school that you went to, which is pretty cool. Little school pride, and you sort of have to get special tickets and whatever. And I was like, I really, really want that hat, and I was like, you know what? So I bought 2 tickets, one for my brother, one for my dad. I was like, you're on a mission. One of those hats is mine. That's all I got to say. And then I gave them the worst, cheapest tickets in the world. They're like, oh my God, thanks for the Cubs tickets. I was like, you're not going to be thanking me in like 2 hours when you go there.
Just get my hat.
Just get my hat. And they were like, well, we have to go for the game. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Have fun in the nosebleeds for the $50 or whatever. So that's how I got mine. But in the past, we've gone. I think we've gone to it in the past few years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I look forward to it every year. Hopefully we're going next year. So listeners, put it on your calendar. Come say hi to me and Mark, and we'll just say that we're going to be at the Northwestern one. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it is something I look forward to each year. And like, it was so awesome to take my kids to their first Cubs game, being also a Hawkeye affiliation. It was amazing. So shout out Cubs and Northwestern. Maybe hook us up with a hat and some seats early. Or you can find us, as always, on House Business Podcast on Instagram. Please like, share, and if you have feedback, put it in the comments so we can all see it. We'd love to see it. You can also listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can watch. And if you're listening and you haven't seen these awesome hats, you can listen to that and watch us on YouTube as well. So with that,
see you next time.
Cheers.
This right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. This right here feel like